I built this miter saw station with 24 drawers on it, including 2 drawers that seems to annoy a lot of people. But I'll tell you more about that later on. I also added an area underneath where we can store all sorts of things, a lot of storage under there. But my question is it really a miter saw station because I put a tool on top of it? What if I put a hammer on there? Or a drill? Would it be a drill station? Okay, let's not get lost in the weeds. Let me show you how I built this from scratch. I didn't realize it then at this point, but the way how I started this project just set the tone for the entire miter saw station build because I couldn't get it right even from the get-go.
He needs some milk.
And yes, one of the Hercules, Hulk, Superman was trying to get the plywood on top of the sawhorses, and I quickly learned that that was a terrible idea. So instead of fattening my chiropractor's pocket some more, I decided I'm just going to cut these on the ground. Yeah. Because my garage floor is not level, I decided to build the toe kicks separately from the cabinets. That way I can level out the base before actually putting the cabinets down. And if you don't know what a toe kick is, well, guess what? You're in luck, because I'm about to show you what it is and how to put it together. After using my track saw to cut these down to the rough height, I'm going to use my table saw to get these down to the actual height, which is around 3.5. The general rule of thumb is 3.5 in terms of height for kickers, and then obviously length, you do whatever you want to do. For this miter station, it's over 10 feet, so I'm going to need a lot of stretchers for this, which we'll see here shortly. Now, because the price of plywood is absolutely ridiculous, I paid $80 for one sheet of plywood. That's crazy. But because they're so expensive, I make sure that I double check my plans, which will be available soon for y'all if you're interested, before I make any cut. Is plywood this expensive near you? Now that I got the long stretchers figured out, it's time to get the shorter stretchers taken care of. And I'm going to just skip over this part because it's pretty much the same thing again. And it looks like somebody forgot to plug the shop vac in. These poor lungs, they don't stand a chance. My joinery method for this build was pocket holes. You don't have to use pocket holes. You can just, do normal butt joints, but pocket holes just looks a lot better. Plus, you can't really see it, and also that's what all the cool kids use, so yeah. By the way, look how fast I'm going through this. Sheesh. Using the K-clamps is probably the best way I know how to fasten pocket holes, because I've used the corner clamps that, I see on Amazon. Maybe I wasn't using them right, but I just find that this way is a lot better. And also, word to the wise, don't just buy anything you see on the internet, Amazon, but you should buy the plans that are going to be available soon for this build. You should definitely do that, though. Also, I discovered that Harbor Freights have some clamps here recently, and I bought one to test it out, and I have to say, it's really not bad for cabinetry. So if you do have a Harbor Freights near you, go ahead and check out their clamp section. And whenever you go there, anytime you go to that store, even if it's to buy electrical equipment, grab you some clamps. You will not regret it. You'll have quite a collection, actually. Now that I have both my toe kicks built, this is what I was talking about earlier. See how that's rocking right there? The floor is it's terrible. You can see right there a close up how out of level or out of plumb that is. Now it's time to level up, pun intended, my kick plate. That's what I get. My toe kick. And do you think I have enough levels? What do you think? After messing around with this for far too long, I was finally able to get this thing plumb. Very level, very happy. Now that I have this all leveled using shims, I went ahead and grabbed some scrap plywood that I had around and cut those up into smaller squares like rectangular shape thingies and use those as my support instead of, using the shims. Maybe if I had some composite shims, I would leave those under there, but because my shims are wooden, I feel like it's better to just use these as support. And I know you're probably not sure what I'm talking about, but just have some patience. Just have some patience. Your boy's going to come through for you. Just look at this. See? I bet now it makes some sense. At least a little bit more sense, right? Yeah. And before the keyboard warriors start typing away, just know that I actually used screw as well. I didn't just use brad nails. Anyways, now it's time to make the cabinet sides. That's exciting. Almost as exciting as watching those strings dangle from my hoodie. Now, in retrospect, that should never have happened because I don't know if you've seen Final Destination. That could have easily been the way I went out. But I'm still here. Thank God. But don't do like me. Also, I'm sure you've noticed I don't have any background music playing. Yeah, that's because I blew my entire budget making this matter station. So I hope you don't mind. Or actually, do you like it without all the background music? Let me know what you think. Now, while you were blinking and not paying attention, I went ahead and cut out all the other sides. Now I'm on the very last one. So now it's time to assemble the carcasses. But before we can do that, I'm going to have to cut 1,000,000 stretchers, which is not fun. And I'm not exaggerating. I literally had 1,000,000 pieces of stretchers in here. Believe it if you want. Also, if there's any electricians here, can you tell me why every time not every time, sometimes when I start my miter saw or my table saw, as you can see there, it always trips the breaker. It's 110 voltage. I'm using a skill table saw, but I don't know why this keeps happening. Do I need to go to a higher voltage? Somebody, please share the wealth of knowledge with me. Now that we have all 1,000,000 pieces of stretchers cut, it's time to move on to pocket holes. And, I genuinely enjoy doing pocket holes. There's just something so satisfying about doing these. Not that you needed to know all that. Anyways, while you do have the option of using butt joints to connect these cabinet carcasses, I don't recommend it. Because if you use butt joints, that means you're going to have a lot of screws that's visible, or, you may have to countersink them and screw them all deep in there, then try to fill them and all that fun stuff. And we don't want anything ugly or ghetto. So I definitely recommend using pocket holes. Now, do you remember earlier in this video when some random guy told you that the best way to assemble cabinet carcasses or boxes is by using K-clamps? Well, I'm starting to think that guy don't know what he's talking about, because this happened. Yeah, that's why we're not supposed to listen to random guys on the internet, because now you almost bust your face wide open. But I still think it's the best way, because look, it's just a technique. There you go. That's all you got to do. Don't try to do the whole damn, excuse my French, dang box at the same time. Well, lesson learned. And since you're one of the 3 people still watching this video, I'm just letting you know now, I appreciate you. And, if you'd like to support this channel in any way, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, thank you. Hit that like button. And if you're looking for more ways to support me, I do have some channel memberships. You can check those out. They're like $1.99 per month or $2.99 per month. Just take a look at that. Appreciate you. And would you look at that? The first box is done. And what even makes it sweeter is that this thing is leveled, bruh. Look at that. This is part of the reason why I like to use a separate toe kick and not built in on the box itself. Because now I can, I don't have to worry about leveling this because it's already leveled. Yeah, you can't see it, but I'm patting myself on the back right now. During the planning stages of this build, I got a real reality check when I looked at drawer slides. And seeing that I'm building a massive miter saw station with a lot of drawers, I was gonna need maybe, I think close to 24 drawer slides. And when I was looking at the price of that thing, those things are expensive. Just on drawer slides alone, I think I would have ended up spending close to like $400 for the type of drawer slides that I want. So, I decided to go against that. I came up with this idea all on my own. No one inspired me at all. I'm a genius. I know. Thank you for creating this jig that I can use to create drawer slides out of actual plywood. I know. You're welcome. And like I said, if you need to see how I built the specifics of it, it'll be all in the plans laid out. Also, I'm not giving a shout out to Drew over at Whitworks for this idea. That's not what this is. This is the point where I started to get real excited just to see this thing come to life as I imagined it. But boy, this thing is heavy. That chiropractor I joked about earlier, I may actually be, be heading there soon to get my back looked at because boy, this thing is heavy. And of course, I had to do a celebratory dance, because this is a major accomplishment for me. This is in fact my first real cabinet box that I've built. So leave me alone. Let me enjoy myself. All right, now, ta-da! With a little YouTube magic, I was able to complete all 4 carcasses. Would you believe that? Since we got most of the cabinets taken care of, the carcasses, it's now time to move on to that connecting part where the miter saw itself is going to sit on. And this is just a basic frame with stretchers evenly placed to support the weight of the miter saw. And of course, this will be fastened to all the studs and of course, both sides of the cabinet carcasses, which you'll see here in a second. Like I said, just be patient. Just be patient. Also, if you're building a miter saw station just like this one, make sure you take the thickness of all the materials that you're going to use, such as your 3/4 inch plywood, for the top of your table, as well as, that piece that's going to go on top of that base, that frame that we just made. And also very important, take into consideration the height of your miter saw base, because in the end, you want a flush plumb surface to go along with your miter saw. Now that we got this taken care of, let's move on to drawers or draws or whatever they're called these days. I'm going to spare you all this cutting because that's 4 sides to each drawer and I have 24 drawers. Yeah, let's just skip right to the assembling. And I'm going to skip over the assembling too because I know you're probably going to skip it anyways. So let's move on to drawer bottoms. Now, there's probably a million different ways how to do this, but this is my way that I figured out. So here goes. And by the way, I put those pieces of tape on there to help me, slide the drawers in and out and stuff like that. So my way of doing this is by making sure the box is flush with the bottoms and then clamping them together and then pull them out that way, so I know they won't move too much. Because if they move, you will know when you try to put it back in there. And again, this trick I did not learn from Drew at Whitworks. So this is not a shout out for this trick. But you basically using a combination square, you can line or draw a line on the bottom of your drawer boxes so you know where exactly to punch your brad nails. And as you can see, I got that almost dead center with the drawer side. So that's good to go. Now I just got to drawer. Now I just got to draw my lines and start punching them nails in. Now I learned this trick recently to stop having shootouts with my brad nailer. So just take note of this and do it the exact same way I'm doing it. Because if not, you're going to have a lot of strays, potentially have a lot of strays shooting out the side of your boxes. Now, let's see if this thing slides in. And there we go. Maybe? Question mark? Oh, there we go. There we go. Now she's good. And of course, some YouTube magic. They're all done. Next, it's time to work on my drawer faces. And to do this, I wanted to make sure that I have a continuous grain so the drawers look good and they're not like mismatched. If I was painting them, I guess it really wouldn't matter. But since we're going to leave it this natural color and we're not going to paint it, it's going to look awesome with the grains matching. And that's why I left that piece of plywood for last, simply because I didn't want to mess it up, to be honest. I just left it for last so I can, trim it down to size later on. And I think I picked the best looking plywood. I don't know, because looking back at it, I think I've had some more pieces that were like a lot better, but oh well. All right, so I brought it over to the cabinet to make sure that it fits. This is just a test fit, and what do you know? Looks really good. At this point, you can't tell, but I'm very excited. Very excited. I guess I was too excited that I even forgot to hit record when I was cutting out the first drawer. So this is actually the second drawer I'm doing. But hey, it's not too late. It's not too late. What I did with the first drawer was I cut a piece of scrap wood that I'll be using as a reference to know where I'm going to put my drawer pulls. I find that measuring each drawer to try to find a center is not working out. So I just literally cut a piece of scrap, clamped that scrap down. I screwed the drawer pulls in, and that maintained a consistency. Even if it wasn't, 100% centered, all the drawer pulls lined up in the end. So not a bad idea if you want to copy it. After confirming my measurements for my next drawer face, I went ahead and cut these down while you weren't looking and grabbed my phase 10 cards, which I'll be using for a spacing around the drawer face. And the thing is, you have to use phase 10 cards. You can't use Uno or regular cards. You must use that. And I'm sure there's other jigs out there that you can use, but I just rather to use the cards. I just grab like 5 each and make sure that I have 5 on both sides and 5 on the bottom. So this is evenly spaced all the way around. Now that I got them spaced evenly, I'm going to use some clamps to just kind of temporarily hold this in place along with some brad nails. And then I'm going to use some screws to fasten them together. Once I got that taken care of, I just started going to town. And this is actual, like, again, real time. Look at this. That's how fast I was going. It was crazy. Yeah, I got this done in like, I don't know, 50 seconds. So Amazing, I know. Next is to add the platform that the miter saw is going to sit on, and then the base where the my shop vac and all that fun stuff is going to go underneath the miter saw. I recently got this from my real job. They're not wood. It's almost like hard plastic, I guess, mixed with wood. I'm not sure what the material is. So if any one of you guys know what material this is, please share with the class. But this is what I'll be using also for my doors. They're really solid, so they're gonna hold up over time. The shop supervisor stopped by to inspect my work, but before I did that, I had her, help me with some dust collection here. So as soon as she got through with that, she started to, double check the quality of work. But just like any old supervisor, they have to, come on in and try to tell me what to do when I already know what to do. But she's like, yeah, well, make sure you cut this part off. I'm like, of course, I know. Jeez, any of y'all have a supervisor like that? Just micromanaging. Look at her. Don't check my work. So because it was my first time installing door hinges and using the Craig hinge install kit thing, I made sure that I read the instructions, which is very surprising. I usually toss them in the nearest trash can whenever I see them. But for this one, I had to do it. And it turned out pretty well. To install the door itself, it was pretty easy. I just kind of propped the door on the outside up, to the right height where I want it, and just kind of screwed it in. And that was pretty simple. Plus the hinge themselves, they have some screws in there that you use a screwdriver to screw around and adjust the door, like the height, the depth, from side to side and stuff like that. After both doors were installed, this is what we are looking like. Looking good. Don't mind all the faced in cards on the ground. Now that we got the cabinet doors installed, I went ahead and cut down those black material things, which I'm still waiting on y'all to tell me what it is actually. Got those nailed down. Now we are good to go. Now my miter saw home is ready. So to complete this build, we're going to go through 6 steps. For step 1, we're going to build the angled drawers. So to build the first rectangular box that I'll be putting the actual drawer in, we're going to start off with some of that 3/4 inch material that we've been using for the doors and stuff like that. Again, I don't know what this is called. I'm just going to give it a name. I'm going to call it the black MDF. And while you weren't paying attention in class, I cut these down on the table saw to the size that I want, and then I'm using brad nails to fasten these together. And while I put these together, let me ask you a question. Have you ever made a plan? Like you know what you want to build. You can probably see it in your head. You know what you want to build. You know how it should look in the end. But you don't know how you're going to get there per se. Please tell me I'm not the only one. Even if you have to lie to me, just please let me know. Because all I know is that I wanted drawers, small drawers, angled drawers, right next to my miter saw so I can store pencils, pens, safety glasses, and my chocolate bars. Yeah, don't tell my kid I'm hiding Snickers out there. Once I check the fit and I see that it's correct, it's time to cut them bad boys down so they match my miter saw angle exactly. To do that, I just grabbed a scrap piece of the black MDF, using it as a straight edge to draw the line across the rectangular box. And then I'm going to actually use the miter saw to make that cut. And if you remember earlier, I used some brad nails to fasten these boxes together. And I'm pleased to share with you that I'm proud of myself. I actually used my brain for once, and I did not put any brad nails in the areas that I'm going to cut. So on one end, there's no brad nails yet. And I'm proud of myself.
I want to thank me.
Thank you for the applause. I know you're clapping right now. And you might as well keep the applause going, because would you look at that? That thing looks sweet. All right. And then some YouTube magic. And voila. Next, it's time to work on the actual drawer inserts, and make sure you're paying attention this time. I'll be cutting these down on my table saw. And right here, you can see all that dust coming out, that smoke, I should say. That was the blade cutting through my actual gripper. Now, looking back at this video, it's kind of making me cringe because there's about, 5 things or more that I'm doing wrong. But what I'm going to have you guys do is drop the 5 things that I did wrong in the comments or more, because I know some of you guys are overachievers. So let me see if you guys really know what y'all talking about, because I see at least 5 things. So let me know. Now that I got all the sides cut down for my inset piece, I fastened these down with some brad nails, and we're good to go. Now that I got the angled drawers taken care of, it's time to work on the top base of the cabinet. I hope that makes sense. If it don't, it'll make sense shortly. When planning this build, I wanted it to be very sturdy and strong. The best way to achieve this is by using 2 sheets of 3/4 inch MDF plywood. Is it considered a plywood? I don't know. Do you need 2 sheets of MDF? Probably not. I just got it because I'm extra, I guess. To complete the cutout for the top, I just need to make sure it aligns properly with the angle of my miter saw base. So I drew the line and made the cut. Also, ignore this piece under here. We'll get to that in a second. And abracadabra. Magic. I used my track saw and cut it. After this, I fastened both pieces of the MDF together. I didn't use any glue. I just used screws, because if something happens to the top and I want to replace it, I can just remove the screws and replace the top MDF and not have to worry about the bottom one. As for my edge profile, unfortunately, I didn't have any like hardwoods to use, like maple or white oak and whatnot. So I went with the plywood that I have, and it looks good. I can't complain. I love it. I prefer it. And if you're going to copy this build, I'd say do exactly like I'm doing here and just punching your brad nails on the upper side of your trim, so you're only shooting through the top MDF and not the bottom one, just in case you want to remove the top later on. After I got the edge profile on, I went ahead and sanded this down, especially the exposed parts of the plywood, simply because I'll be putting down laminate on top, and the laminate's going to go over my edge banding, and I don't want any, I don't want any problems. So I sanded it all down to 220, and that seemed to have worked for me. Next up in this build is to work on the top of the tippity top. Top of the tip. Hey, who came up with this list? You did. Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Oh.
You knew that.
Anyways, I decided to go with laminate because, well, mainly because of how it looks. I just think it looks sleek. It looks good. And the other reason is that it's apparently really sturdy and strong if applied correctly. But the real reason is because of how it looks. And I feel like in most of my projects, I will be using this. I know they make some laminate cutters or scorers or whatever you call them. I didn't have one of those on hand, so I decided to use my track saw, and it worked perfectly fine. When cutting this, I didn't cut it down to the exact measurements that I needed it at. I just did a rough cut, and then I'll be using my trim router to round over the edges. Before putting any adhesive on it, I decided to just do a quick test fit because I know the kind of luck that I have. So I wanted to make sure, and it fits okay. Nice. After cutting the other piece out, it's time to add the contact cement to both pieces that I cut out and to the surface, to the MDF surface that I'll be putting it on. This stuff is strong. So make sure you're doing this in like a garage or something with the doors open. And please, please, please wear a mask because this thing will knock you out. Better yet, make sure that you read the instructions and the warnings on the can if you're doing this as well. One trick I learned recently is that after you pour the contact cement on the surface and then you use your roller to roll it and spread it, it's best to go back over it with a paintbrush so you can get rid of all the bubbles that's there, because the bubbles can cause your laminate to lift. And I actually learned this from another YouTuber whose channel is about a moth who drinks a lot of bourbon, I think. I'll link his video down below. Not that he needs it at all. So you guys can check it out after this video or after you watch a few more of my videos. After waiting for around 20 minutes for the contact cement to dry, I went ahead and grabbed me some scraps to lay on top of the MDF because this is going to serve as a spacer between the actual MDF and the laminate sheet. Because once those two make contact, like the contact cement on both materials, they're going to be inseparable. They're going to be stuck together like my relationship with Snickers. And also, if you're doing this, please clean the scraps that you're putting on the surface, because if you don't, you will regret it. Hey, if you want to do it, go ahead, have at it, but you can't say I didn't warn you. This is my baby roller that I got from Lowe's. They were out of the bigger one, so I had to just get that one. And of course, I could order it online, but I'm very impatient. I need my miter station, and I need it now, so I decided to go with the smaller one. Laugh if you want. So they say whenever you're going to create that bond, and by they, I mean the moth guy, you just pull the middle slats out first and then work your way from the middle outwards. And this was a little nerve-wracking. You know, you can't see it, but I was sweating in all parts of my body. Because once you put these together, I guess you'll have to use some kind of heating gun and just ruin the whole thing. And I didn't want that to happen. But no. This was fairly easy. For this part, I have 2 tips to share that I think is really important. When you're rolling on your laminate, make sure you apply a lot of force to it. And, you know, I'm not the strongest in the room, so I had to put my back into it with that elbow grease. So that's tip number 1. Make sure you put a lot of force in it. Number 2, careful of those edges. If you're anything like me, if you build yours like mine and you built it with that overhang that you're going to kind of, you know, shave up a little bit later on and get it taken care of, be careful, because if you roll close to the edge, you run the risk of cracking it or breaking it. So yeah, just don't do that. 24 hours later, this is what we're looking like. I let it sit because you have to let it sit and cure for a very long time. As you can see there, I have a lot of overhang. Now it's time to grab my round over bit and get that taken care of. Or so I thought. The reason why I say that is because while using my round over bit to remove this much material, it felt like the router was struggling. And this is a powerful router. So if it's struggling like this, plus the very strong burn smell I was getting, I decided to cut most of the excess off and then go back over it again with the round over bit, and it worked fine. So my first attempt at getting off the excess laminate that I have on here is by using the straight edge, which is a sore spot because it pisses me off. We'll talk more about that later on. Was to just basically clamp it down and use a box cutter to try to score a line on the laminate. I can tell you now that didn't work, so I went with the good old track saw, and that took care of the job. Now when rounding over these edges, or I guess chamfering these edges, it felt a lot safer and it was riding smoothly along the edges. So I was able to knock this out in no time. After routing all the edges, I did a quick test fit and it looks good. Can't complain. And then with some YouTube magic, voila, the other one's done. And of course, once I got it on there, I had to test the rigidity of it. I did like 70 more of those when you guys weren't looking. I didn't stop at just 2. To secure the top to the cabinets, I just went ahead and used my countersink bit to drill some holes, and then I used some wood screws to fasten them down. So the miter saw is actually not leveled with the miter saw station, simply because I wanted to come back and use some shims underneath the legs to bring it up to level. And if I was supposed to do this again, I'd probably use composite shims instead of wooden shims, because I fear that the wooden shims will not last a very long time, whereas the composite shims would. I don't know, but I definitely recommend you do the same with yours. Now onto the absolute worst part of this project, the T-track. It all started out really good. Marked my line as to where I want the T-track to go on both sides of the miter saw station. Even did a test cut just to make sure that the T-track will fit. I added tape to prevent tear out. And I'm using this Bora straight edge that will double as a guide. But I made one crucial mistake that almost had me huddled up in a corner crying. In case you missed it, it was right here. I didn't tighten this clamp all the way down, and just watch. So yeah, the clamp shifted, which caused the router to shift, and I'm sure you know what happens next. After I got through drinking some water, I got back at it and I routed the rest of the track, and this is what it looked like. I'm sorry I don't have better footage of this, but honestly, in the moment, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just really annoyed. But hey, on the flip side of things, it worked itself out because I had purchased some Craig adhesive sticky tape, like measuring tape thing, and it's just my luck that it's wide enough to cover that hole. So the hole is still there, but you can't see it. And what you don't see, you don't know. I think that's what the saying is. Now on to the last stage of this build, the angled drawers, part 2. This second part really wasn't as complicated as I thought it was going to be. And of course, I wasn't recording when I cut the first piece. But as for the details on, the angle that I cut this at, the length, the width, and whatnot, that would all be covered in the plans that are going to be available soon. Now, to get the drawer face on the drawer, that was a challenge. But in the end, I figured it out. I used some CA glue along with some activator, and this just made the drawer and the drawer face stick together like my relationship with Snickers. And all that's remaining to do is just to use some brad nails or some screws to really fasten these together. And there you have it. That's the end of the build. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. And I hope you learned something of value, or I inspired you to build your own miter station similar to this one. If you do want plans, if you're interested in those, we have them down below, so make sure you go ahead and grab those. And I have to say, I'm really proud, I'm really glad how this community has grown. I gained over 400 new subscribers in 1 week. That's crazy for me. So I appreciate you. And if you haven't subscribed already, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that like button. And let's confuse some people, the ones who haven't stayed this long. Drop a chocolate bar emoji in the comment section and watch. All right? Appreciate you and see you in the next one.